picture this. You're in a courtroom back in 1870,
Oh, wow.
and a woman is fighting to protect her invention, a machine that would honestly change the way we carry groceries.
Okay.
She's up against a man who says it's his idea. That's how we're kicking off our deep dive
She's
today
intriguing.
with the story of Margaret E. Knight, the woman who invented the flat-bottom paper bag machine.
The paper bag machines.
But not just that she fought like crazy to protect her creation.
I mean, it's interesting, because you think about it, that case, it really shows you a lot about what society was like back then.
Yeah.
You had this guy, Charles Annan.
Yeah.
He sees Knight's design and just assumes, like...
Oh, a woman couldn't...
Yeah, there's no way a woman could come up with this. It's too complex.
Right.
And he tries to use that bias to his advantage.
It's amazing, isn't it? It makes you think about all the incredible ideas that might have been brushed aside or just stolen throughout history.
Yeah.
Simply because of the inventor's gender.
It's a thought-provoking question for sure.
So who was this woman?
Right.
This woman who took on the establishment and changed the way we live our lives.
So Margaret E. Knight, she was born back in 1838.
Okay.
And her life wasn't easy. She lost her father when she was young.
Oh.
And that put a lot of financial strain on her family.
Right.
By the time she was 12, she was already working in a cotton mill.
12 years old.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just unimaginable today.
It's hard to fathom.
It really makes you appreciate the challenges she must have faced.
Absolutely. And even as a child, working in those dangerous conditions,
Right.
her inventive spirit was already shining through.
Oh, wow.
There was this incident where a coworker got seriously injured because of a faulty loom shuttle.
Right.
And Margaret, instead of just accepting the danger,
Yeah.
she invented a safety device
Wow.
to stop it from happening again.
I find that so inspiring that even when facing hardship,
Yeah.
her first thought was to find a solution,
It's incredible.
to make things better. It really says a lot about her character.
It's a true testament to her problem-solving nature.
Yeah.
It's a shame she didn't patent that early invention.
Oh, really?
So the exact design is lost to history.
Wow.
But just think about the impact it had.
Right.
It was widely used in mills and probably prevented countless injuries.
Yeah.
Her ingenuity was making a difference from such a young age.
It's amazing to think about an unsung hero from the very start.
Yeah.
But how does a young woman who begins in a cotton mill
Right.
end up revolutionizing something as simple as the paper bag?
Well, to understand her success later on,
Okay.
you have to look at her early life.
Okay.
She had all sorts of jobs: engraving, photography, even upholstery and home repair.
Wow. That's a lot.
She was picking up practical skills and knowledge along the way.
Right.
And that all fed into her inventiveness.
Okay.
Then in 1868, while she's working at a paper bag company,
Okay.
she sees how inefficient those flat bags are and how much work it takes to make flat-bottom bags by hand. And that sparks something in her. A determination to find a better way.
So she wasn't just a brilliant mind.
Yeah.
She had a real hands-on understanding of materials and mechanics.
Exactly.
This wasn't just some theory for her. She knew the challenges of the manufacturing process firsthand.
Absolutely. That's where all that varied work experience really pays off.
Mm-hmm.
Knight spent years perfecting her paper bag machine.
Years.
Yeah. First, she built a wooden prototype
Oh, wow.
to test out the concept.
Right.
And then she scaled it up to a full-blown iron machine
Wow.
ready for factory production.
I can only imagine the dedication and just pure grit that must have taken.
Yeah.
Especially back in the 1800s. Can you tell me a bit about the machine?
Sure.
What was it like? Was it very complicated?
Well, it was pretty ingenious for its time.
Okay.
Knight's machine used a series of metal plates and folding mechanisms
Oh, yeah.
to automatically create the flat bottom of the bags.
Gotcha.
So imagine a piece of paper feeding into the machine.
Okay.
It goes through these rollers and folders, each step perfectly timed
Uh-huh.
to make the creases and folds,
Yeah.
the ones you need for that iconic flat bottom shape.
And this whole process was automated.
Yeah.
That must have been revolutionary for the paper bag industry.
It was a game changer.
Wow.
It sped up production so much and made things way more efficient.
Okay.
Flat bottom bags were suddenly readily available and affordable, but just as Knight's machine was ready to go,
Yeah.
Charles Annan shows up
Oh, no.
and claims her invention as his own.
It's just infuriating that he tried to take advantage of her work,
Yeah,
especially considering how society viewed women back then.
it's really frustrating.
So how did she fight back? What evidence did she use to prove it was her invention?
Well, you remember those detailed notebooks we talked about?
Yes.
Those were her secret weapon.
Really?
Knight kept meticulous records of every single step of her design process.
Okay.
She made detailed diagrams,
Huh?
listed all the materials, and even wrote down her observations and the challenges she faced.
That's incredible foresight.
Right.
It's like she knew she might have to defend her work someday.
Right. It's like she was preparing for this moment.
Those notebooks sound like a treasure trove of information.
They really are. They give you a real glimpse into her creative process.
Yeah.
And they were key to winning her case.
Oh, good.
And on the other hand, could only give vague descriptions of the machine.
Right.
He didn't have the deep knowledge that Knight had.
So it was her attention to detail,
Right.
her understanding of how the machine worked, that saved the day.
Exactly.
Incredible.
Her victory in 1871
Wow.
really shook things up in the invention world.
I bet.
Not only did she get the patent for her paper bag machine,
Right.
but she also challenged the whole idea that women couldn't be successful inventors.
That's amazing.
It was a huge victory on
Right.
multiple levels. It's really a story of perseverance, isn't it? I mean, that court case, it shows you just how ingenious Knight was, but also her resilience.
Yeah.
I mean, she didn't let society's expectations hold her back.
Sure.
She chased her passion. When she was challenged, she fought back.
Absolutely. And her success with that paper bag machine,
Right.
it gave her the freedom to become a full-time inventor,
Exactly.
which was pretty rare for a woman in those days.
Very rare.
It's like she paved the way for future generations of women inventors.
Yeah, you could say she opened the door for them.
So let's talk about her other inventions.
Okay.
You mentioned her work in shoemaking earlier.
Right. Well, think about shoe production in the late 1800s.
Okay.
It was still mostly done by hand.
Wow.
Every step required skilled labor and specialized tools.
I can't imagine making shoes entirely by hand.
It was very labor-intensive
Yeah,
and time-consuming.
I bet. And Knight saw an opportunity for improvement there.
She did. She developed a machine for cutting shoe soles.
Mhm.
Something that was typically done by hand
Yeah.
with all sorts of knives and tools. But her invention used a system of rotating blades and a conveyor belt
Okay.
to automate the process.
It's amazing how she saw a chance for innovation in something as basic as cutting shoe soles.
I know, right?
It reminds me of that early invention in the cotton mill.
Right.
She was always looking for ways to make things better.
Always striving for efficiency and safety.
Exactly.
Okay.
So this shoe sole cutting machine, did it have a big impact?
Most likely. It probably streamlined production,
Yeah.
reduced labor costs,
Okay.
and maybe even made shoes more affordable.
Interesting. So she had this practical side to her,
Definitely.
this deep understanding of how manufacturing worked.
Yeah, and speaking of practicality, you remember that skirt protector we talked about earlier?
Oh yeah, that one caught my attention.
Okay, well, picture it's the Victorian era, right?
Okay.
Women are walking around in these long, elaborate skirts,
Yeah.
trying to navigate cobblestone streets and muddy paths.
I can only imagine the mess those skirts must have been.
Oh, it was a nightmare.
Magnets for dirt and grime. And probably a tripping hazard too.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
But Knight, she saw a problem that needed a solution.
She did.
And her solution was the skirt protector,
The skirt protector.
a garment specifically designed to shield those big skirts from the elements.
That's right.
I'm picturing something like a raincoat,
Yeah.
but just for the lower half of the body.
Yeah, kind of like that.
Was it bulky or hard to wear?
Well, from what we know, it sounds like it was pretty practical.
Okay,
Probably made of a lightweight, water-resistant fabric
okay.
and designed to adjust to the fullness of those Victorian skirts.
It's like a Victorian-era fashion hack.
You could say that.
I wonder if she ever thought about marketing it as a stylish accessory.
That's an interesting thought. We don't really know much about her marketing strategies.
Yeah.
But it does show that Knight understood how to combine practicality with the fashion of the time.
She was ahead of her time, in a way.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, if she were around today, she could have been a pioneer in functional fashion design.
I think so, too. And that knack for solving practical problems, well, you see it in her spring-loaded clasp as well.
Right.
Remember we talked about that?
Oh, yeah, I remember that. It was for securing blankets on carriage rides, right?
Exactly.
Seems so simple, but so clever.
It was. And what's really remarkable about that invention is
Yeah.
it shows you how well Knight understood mechanics.
Okay.
This wasn't just some simple hook or button.
Right.
It was a carefully engineered system with interlocking loops and a spring mechanism.
Wow.
And it was designed to be both secure and easy to use.
So like a much more advanced version of those clasps we see on backpacks today.
Yeah, something like that.
But imagine creating that kind of mechanism back then.
Right.
The materials and technology they had in the late 1800s.
It's pretty impressive.
It really shows her ingenuity.
Definitely. It's amazing how she moved so effortlessly between these different fields,
Yeah.
from heavy machinery to fashion accessories.
What do you think drove her to explore such a wide range of inventions?
Well, I think it was her curiosity. Okay.
Her constant desire to solve problems,
Right.
big and small.
And remember, her early life exposed her to all sorts of trades and industries.
That's right.
So she had this unique perspective
Yeah.
and a diverse set of skills.
A real jack of all trades.
It's like she was always learning and experimenting.
Absolutely.
Her story really challenges that idea of specialization.
It does.
She wasn't afraid to try new things.
No, she embraced new challenges.
And of course, her success with the paper bag machine,
Right.
it gave her the financial freedom to pursue those passions.
Exactly. She had an office in Boston
Oh, wow.
and lived just outside the city,
Yeah.
devoting herself entirely to inventing.
It's inspiring to think about a woman achieving that level of independence
Yeah.
and financial security back then,
Especially back then.
and all through her own ingenuity. But her ambitions didn't stop there.
No, they didn't.
She was interested in more than just everyday conveniences and fashion.
Right. She was interested in things like steam engines. Yes. Tell me about her work with steam engines.
Well, Knight's rotary steam engine, that was probably her most ambitious project.
Okay.
It shows a real depth of knowledge
Yeah.
and a desire to tackle some serious engineering challenges.
What was the purpose of her steam engine?
Good question.
Was it meant to power her other inventions?
Well, that was probably part of it.
Okay.
But I think her vision was bigger than that.
In what way?
She believed her steam engine could power all sorts of machines.
Oh, wow.
It could potentially revolutionize industries beyond her own.
So she really wanted to make a lasting impact on the world,
Yeah.
push the boundaries of what technology could do.
Exactly.
Do you know how successful her steam engine was?
Unfortunately, not really.
Oh.
The details of its development and its impact are pretty scarce.
Hmm.
It seems like it was kind of overshadowed by the success of her paper bag machine.
Nice.
But the fact that she took on such a complex project,
Right.
it speaks volumes about her ambition
Yeah.
and her belief in her own abilities.
It makes you wonder what could have been.
Yeah.
What if her steam engine had gotten the same attention and support as her other inventions?
It's a good question.
It just reminds us of all the potential that's lost when we limit opportunities
Absolutely.
based on gender or any other societal constraint.
It's a powerful reminder to challenge those limitations.
So thinking about all of this, what do you think is Margaret E. Knight's legacy? That's a big question.
How did her work change not only the world of inventions,
Yeah, right.
but also the role of women in society?
Yeah, it really goes beyond just the inventions, doesn't it? I mean, her determination or her success in a field dominated by men,
Right.
it all points to a much larger impact.
It does. You can't talk about Margaret E. Knight without talking about her influence on the women's rights movement.
Yeah,
I mean, we may not know exactly what her views were,
right.
but her actions spoke volumes.
Absolutely. She lived a life of independence. She supported herself through her inventions,
Exactly.
which was almost unheard of for a woman back then.
I was truly remarkable.
It really challenged those societal norms.
Hmm.
You know, the ones that kept women confined to the home.
It did.
She became this symbol of what was possible.
Right.
Proof that women had the intelligence and the right to be part of the world of innovation.
Absolutely.
It must have been so empowering for other women
Oh, I'm sure it was.
to see someone like Margaret E. Knight achieving so much.
It gave them a role model, someone to look up to.
So her name started appearing in articles and publications,
It did.
advocating for women's equality.
Yes. She became a shining example
Wow.
of what women could do if they were given the chance,
Yeah.
the freedom to follow their passions.
It's like she became a pioneer for women's rights
In a way, she did.
just by following her own path
At exact.
and excelling at what she loved.
Hmm.
Do you think she was aware of the impact she was having?
It's hard to say for sure.
Yeah.
But her achievements, they resonated far beyond inventions.
Right.
She challenged the very definition of what a woman could be.
Especially in a time when those boundaries were so rigid.
Exactly. It's a legacy that continues to inspire today.
Absolutely. So what do you think is the most important takeaway from Margaret E. Knight's story for us today?
I think it's the importance of nurturing and celebrating ingenuity wherever we find it.
Okay.
Knight's story shows us what we miss out on when we limit someone's potential.
Right.
Based on what society expects.
Yeah.
Just imagine how much richer our world would be if everyone, regardless of gender, had the freedom and the encouragement to pursue their passions.
It makes you think about all the brilliant minds that have been overlooked or discouraged throughout history,
It does.
simply because they didn't fit the mold.
It's a real loss for everyone.
That's why it's so important to champion diversity and inclusivity
Absolutely.
in every field,
Right.
especially in STEM fields where women are still underrepresented.
We need more role models like Margaret Knight.
Thus we do.
Her story is a powerful reminder that brilliance has no gender
Right.
and that we all benefit when everyone has the chance to shine.
I think that's a great place to wrap up our deep dive into the remarkable life and work of Margaret Knight.
It has been a fascinating journey.
It has. We've learned about her groundbreaking inventions,
Right.
her incredible tenacity,
Yeah.
and her profound impact on the women's rights movement.
She truly was a remarkable woman.
But before we go, I want to leave our listeners with something to think about.
Okay, I'm listening.
We've talked about Knight's inventions, her perseverance, and her influence on social change.
We have.
But there's another aspect of her story that I think we all learn from.
Oh, and what's that?
It's her curiosity, her constant desire to understand how things work
Right.
and to find solutions to everyday problems.
She never stopped learning.
Exactly.
Yep.
So I challenge our listeners to embrace that same spirit of inquiry.
It's a great challenge.
Don't be afraid to ask questions, to tinker, to experiment, to seek out knowledge.
It's how we grow and learn.
You never know what you might discover, what problems you might solve,
Right.
or what impact you might have on the world.
That's a wonderful way to honor Margaret Knight's legacy.
And on that note, we'll say goodbye for now. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Until next time.